Yeah, welcome back guys. Look, this video is a little bit of a rant, sorry for that, about servicing you get from dealer and or mechanics. And when I say service, possibly the lack thereof. I'd just like to share some experiences I've had over the years, and it leads me up to a recent experience. Look, probably 20 something years ago, I had a Yamaha Tenere 660, you know, the old ones, and took that to a local bike shop, which was a BMW dealer in the northern suburbs of Sydney. I won't name names. They serviced the bike. The bike was a good bike. The very next day on the freeway, the engine seized up. I took it back to them and they said, "Mate, you've got no oil in it." There was less than 500 mils of oil. I pointed out to them that, well, actually you serviced it yesterday. They wouldn't have a bar of it. It was basically my word against theirs. I was using the bike as a daily commuter at the time, so I didn't have the time to stuff around, you know, taking it further. I just needed it done. So I paid them to rebuild the engine. Hindsight, I wouldn't have done that, but at the time it was the best decision I made. That store I've never been back to in 20 something years, and if you know me personally, you'll know I'm quite passionate about raving about how bad they are, and well, willing to name names off camera because that was just appalling. And I have heard other reports from other people at the time about that. Next thing, a couple of years ago, I took my Versys 300 in for a service, and at the time I had a big trip planned and I didn't have time to service it myself properly, so I put it in with them, and not that dealer, a different bike shop, and told them I was going on a big trip and got all these things done to it. The service cost me a substantial amount of money because, you know, I got other bits and pieces done that needed to be done. You know, I think it was close on $1,800 all up for this service. Now that trip actually didn't happen, but I did an alternative trip. So I rode the bike home from that dealer and then didn't ride it. A week later I set off on this alternative trip. And right from the word go, the bike just didn't sound right, you know, and you know the sound of your bike and what it should sound like. If you don't, I suggest you learn it. And then, you know, at the end of that day, I checked things over and there was no oil in the sight glass whatsoever. And I even got, where I went, I even got a reputable guy I know up, you know, North Tablelands, who has a dealership. He checked it and he said, "Mate, you've got to get some oil into that bike." I ended up putting a litre of oil in that bike, which I just think's, given I told these guys I was setting off on a big trip, to have a litre less oil is just appalling. Anyway, that was that experience. The next experience was actually with my car. I had a Nissan, and I took it to the Nissan dealer for a service, picked it up. Anyway, I drove it home, and then something made me check under the bonnet, and perched precariously on a ledge was a ratchet spanner, you know, with an extension and a 10mm socket, that was left under the bonnet. Now, what was interesting about that was it was just about on the verge of falling into the radiator fan. Now, had that happened, the fan would have exploded and I would have been up for a big repair bill, but that spanner would have fallen out on the road, and chances are I wouldn't have even known what caused that failure of the car, so I wouldn't have been able to hold them accountable for it. I mean, just little things like that, you know, that could have been horrific at that time. And then that leads me, you know, I picked up the CF Moto. Now, some of you will know where I picked that up from. That particular bike shop doesn't have the dealership for CF Moto anymore. Maybe not surprised there. But when I picked it up, or as I was picking it up, I noticed the handguard was loose. It just wasn't even tightened. I got them to tighten that. I rode away from there, And I thought, oh, the steering's a bit dodgy, but you know, I only took the bike for one test ride, so I thought I'll just see how it goes. Anyway, I got home and checked the tyre pressure, and it had 12 psi in it. Now, I know you're thinking it could have been a leak. I pumped that tyre up to pressure, and it's never failed me. So it's obviously they just didn't pump the tyres up properly when I got it. Then I looked further into the bike, took the seat off, and there's a rubber strap that holds the battery down in position. That wasn't on, it was actually hooked up under another bolt, so clearly they'd hooked it out of the way to work on the battery and never hooked up. I mean, just little things like that. I mean, I know they're busy, they're trying to get the bikes out, but seriously, just spend an extra couple of minutes making sure the bike's actually right and safe to go, I think is pretty important. And then that brings me to my next thing. So yesterday I got my bike serviced, different place, won't name names. And because of all these experiences I've had, I checked my oil. It was way overfilled. I actually have a feeling that they did the oil level with the bike on the side stand rather than vertical. So I had to take the bash plate off and take out some oil. I ended up pulling out 400 millilitres of oil. That's how much extra was in there. And again, it's like, it was a minor service. Their job was to change the oil and oil filter, do the air filter, clean the chain, check a few other things. Really, that's all they had to do, and couldn't get the oil right. And you know, the oil's a very important part of your motorcycle, and they got it wrong. So anyway, I've drained that out. So anyway, look, I just thought I'd, you know, say to others, you know, just because you get a dealer or a mechanic to do your work, look over it, you know. And it really is annoying that, you know, I would be doing the oil changes myself, except for the fact that the bike is under warranty and I don't want to avoid the warranty. And it's sort of a bit ironic, isn't it, that the manufacturers want you to get the dealer to service because they're doing a good job, when in actual fact, most times you can actually do a better job yourself and look after your motorcycle, you know. And it's your motorcycle. When you pull things apart, you know, to change the oil, you do inspections, you look to make sure things are right, and things like that. Just a very small point, you know, I'm not asking these people to clean my bike, but, you know, I took the bash plate off to drain my oil and there was a rock wedged in the exhaust headers, which you couldn't see and indeed couldn't get to until you took the bash plate off, you know. And you'd think, you know, for the half a second it would take to just pull the rock out, you know, they hadn't done it. Yeah, maybe that's expecting too much, but, you know, when I take the bash plate off, I clean the bash plate, clean under the engine, and make sure that's all good. And it's part of inspecting your bike and, you know, making sure things are going. Anyways, look, just a warning. Do check your dealer's work. Don't assume that they know what they're doing, because they make errors all the time. Anyway, I'll be interested to hear you guys, what experiences you've had with mechanics and dealers and your bike servicing. I'd be interested to hear. Surely I can't be the only one that's had problems. Anyway, thanks for that. Look forward to hearing your comments. Cheers.